Isn't it funny how technology expands, but we still come back to the fundamentals? So buying a robot ultimately will be like buying a car. What model you got? How durable is it? Manufacturing is still part of the process, and the Six Sigma controls. So do you want to spend a lot for something? It'll be like, oh no, he owns an Omnibot. It stays broken all the time.
Yeah, I'd always go with the Honda.
Oh gosh.
Or you can go for Ford, right? Because Ford stands for what? Found on road dead.
Yeah. So, and then kids, right? They're going to be burning each other. Is that your family's robot? How cheap?
Right.
Right.
How quickly things are going to things are expected. Where when we know how to be a little bit patient on the way we can let things evolve or learn. But that's the difference between us. Our parents, my father's way more patient than I am. I know that much.
Well, that's interesting. That the intersectionality of what you just said and artificial intelligence. A lot of the things when it comes to what we see and how we see it and how it's delivered is a hijacking of natural processes, and artificial intelligence is used to do that, right?
Use with AI now, or what's available in the realm of Chat GPT. That's a big area. Everyone's familiar with it, right? Chat GPT and there's areas for business that you can take advantage of, and there's areas with technology. But then again, you always want to be careful of the information that you get and make sure that it's accurate. That's just the first thing. Is check yourself as you get information. It's a good way to start, but then you want to start building using that as more like as an appendage, like an advisor. And then from there, it gives you a good reference point of where you want to start. For kids in technology, that's where I love it. There's such a huge advantage with kids now in technology. And speaking about your son, I'm a single father. I raise kids. My kids are a little bit older now, but I've raised, and I'm also an instructor, professor. I teach AI, and also I assist with ethical hacking and things of that nature. And I've noticed the progression of different ages and students. And now students, the younger generation, we'll just say 18 or 15, 18 to 20-year-old. They're in like the stuck generation, because they have so much technology. They're stuck, but they know that there's opportunity there. All of those things that stick them to those devices now can also enable them. There's algorithms that as soon as they start doing things, that will start feeding them, things they need to learn. If they want to get into, say, for example, IT, like you said, when you and I got into IT, it was different. You had to read a book, you had to research, or you just had to just learn on the fly, right?
No, we had to get them big books and used to learn binary, ones and zero and zero and one and one and one.
What was once, difficult because maybe a few had access to it, because some people didn't live close to library and proximity to library. Fortunately, in my lifetime, I always was close to libraries, and I could go if I needed to learn how to, write video games in pre-basic for a Commodore 64. I could find a book on that, That's access to information quickly, and I think it levels the playing ground. And to get into the point is, for your son, he wants to learn about robotics. Maybe start looking. You now, where before, to learn about robotics, you had to go to a special school or you had to know someone. Now, if you want to learn anything about robotics, in an afternoon, you can be tuned up and start thinking about, okay, these are the things I want to buy in order for me to start to learn about robotics. If I want to learn about Raspberry Pis, boom, you're in there now. You have information. You can start learning how to write programs for your robots before you even have your robots ready, where you can virtualize this information.
I call them praise reports. I want praise reports. I want to know what you're utilizing this skill set for, because there's no limitations. That's the good news.
Well, I'm glad we have two more AI users at this point than before this conversation started. I chat with ChatGPT all the time. I act like it's my friend, blah, 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 blah. But I'll give you a range of difficulty here, because a lot of people really get emotionally attached to a ChatGPT. right? I'm not using ChatGPT example. I'm just talking about chat bots, as in systems that you're talking to. And we talked about in the previous discussion where psychology of a children will say, well, if I'm looking at this thing with my two eyes, that thing probably has two eyes back at me, right? So there's a person actually behind this whole conversation, which has happened where people have gone down the mental suffering path where they were dating, they were having a girlfriend that's AI, right? But if you look at the whole other side of the spectrum of it, there are people that are so fearful of AI they won't even get near it, right? Or a chatbot that's, they will say like, well, I don't want to deal anything with a chatbot, right? If they see it, they freak out, they react negatively. And I think Lucky mentioned that digital natives are far more curious about AI, but it's not that curiosity that's driving it. It's a competition to keep up with everybody else that's driving it, right? So we have a task here, which is to say there's the digital refugees and there's the digital immigrants, right? How do we get digital refugees and immigrants to kind of say like, how do we help the digital natives, right? Get them with the story that makes sense. Personalize that story, right? Because when it comes to the digital purchasing things, they don't care about personalizing story. They just want you to spend that dollar, and once they spend the dollar, they're out, right? There's no continuity to tell you more stories later on.
It's never been easier than before to break into AI. So if you want to build a career, you can leverage online resources available, including open source code, data sets, papers, and online courses like a deep learning specialization on Coursera. As part of this journey, I hope you get your hands dirty too. Don't be afraid of diving in to build your own project, or go ahead and try to replicate a research paper that you're excited about. One thing that I've seen help a lot of people succeed is if you can build a community or find a community of fellow deep learners you can meet with and study with on a regular basis.
But wasn't it Kit?
Yeah. Kit. Right?
Yeah.
So
when I
imagine you have it.
when I think about data as what you guys are talking about, I think of the importance, and it goes back to what Bobby asked the question. How can we utilize AI to help benefit us as human beings? And I think about the school districts, because when I go to school districts and I'm talking to the children about the importance of AI, about the importance of cybersecurity and protecting the data, you'd be amazed that the instructors are just kind of shell shocked. But I think if we can create a platform to have AI more involved, not in a sense to where it's doing the work for our students, but mainly for our teachers, our educators, our educators from all levels, from elementary to middle school to high school, even college, and even instructors as myself, is needed. And it's there to help and aid the teaching for all of the educators.
So what would an afternoon with all of us look like in a school each school all around the world? Like Bill Nye the Science Guy. It's us, right? We're bringing AI. We're bringing cybersecurity to the school.
You have generative AI like Stable Diffusion, where I love art. I like to draw, but that was one of those hobbies that it was just not a hobby, but it was one of those things that it never really, for me, working was more realistic than drawing. But I can take stuff like, I don't know, Vincent Van Gogh, or I can say, look, I want you to draw me a picture of a father and a son fishing. And I wanted it to be in the style of Vincent Van Gogh.
Gray zones in AI and data space. So, like I said, a CFO, HR, they all have to have that gap analysis, and that gap analysis comes from curiosity. I have to be vulnerable enough to say I have lots of gaps in my understanding, and I can tell you that as a person who's been working in the AI space for 10 years, I have tons of gaps. Trust me, believe me. There's not enough people, like that gentleman in the video said. Even a machine learning engineer doesn't know enough about machine learning. And that's just machine learning. That's nothing to do with CFO's job or HR's job or pain point that CEO is facing, right? What if as a machine learning engineer, you ask a machine learning guy who gets paid $350,000 a year to say, listen, CEO wrote an email yesterday, and I think somebody mentioned that earlier. CEO wrote an email yesterday, and 24 hours later, one of our users is able to access that email. What's going on? Why is my CEO's email being published all around the company and everybody can read it now? What is going on, right? The complexities are not that easy to explain, but the time is of the essence. You have to do your gap analysis so quick and so rapid, so frequently, that you have to be able to answer these questions quick. I think the faith comes from the fact that you can make your data-driven decision making faster than previously, because we make data-driven decisions as of now, but we just don't do it fast enough. And in AI space, things that don't move fast gets left behind.
So really looking out for humanity, saying, hey, I see you, I recognize that there is a gap in knowledge here, and then doing the due diligence to pair people off for them to be able to learn what they need to learn. The first step is with III on our podcast, right? Having a transparent conversation with, this is what is happening. What are your best next steps? Well, your best next steps is to, get in touch with one of us so we can have a conversation face to face and see how we can be a service to you and your organization to get you guys upskilled.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Don't go on this AI journey by yourself, and don't have to feel like you're the only one suffering. I always say in the military, if you're suffering alone, first thing you have to do is discover that everybody's suffering, and everybody is suffering alone. Until you meet another person that says, you know what, you're crazy as I am. Let's get crazy, right? So so I think, Masako, if people were to reach out to each other, I think the first part of that conversation is to reach out to the left and right? You have to do that gap analysis. However, time is of the essence. So, as you're reaching out for what question to ask, I think this is what I've seen for the last 10 years is that I wasn't able to frame the question correctly, which left me wondering all the time. But over time, that's what has happened, that I got comfortable with the questions that I have because I started framing them in a sort of choppy, blocked off ways that had some relevance to what it is that I need to get done, right? Since this is a learning platform, let's talk about it quickly, is that in machine learning, if you want to be successful, you will never run into somebody called decision scientist, right? But this decision science conversation is literally to help you understand the question. And in machine learning, the majority of success comes from the specific questions that you've asked in your machine learning or your AI journey. Why is that important? It's because 80% of the model in machine learning and AI does not deploy. And that's important to remember. It's not a number that is just, say, a US government number. This is a Silicon Valley number. This has been happening for the last 25 years, where the models that get started to be built and the CFO invests money into it, all of a sudden they go to waste or they get repurposed and they never end up deploying. That's 80%. That's 80% failure into the AI space, right? 20%, exact number is actually 17%. Because it's 83 and 17, that's what they use a lot, right? The 17% is underperforming. So Masako, as you're saying, like, hey, I have a problem, I need to reach out to somebody. You have to manage the expectation of what AI you do deliver and get received is going to be a poor quality AI. Over time, you mature it. It's just like a child. It doesn't know how to walk yet, but you have to start in the crawling phase. And that's important to know, because when you're talking to an IT guru, he's going to say, yes, we'll deliver it. Yes, we have it right now. It will work for you tomorrow. Come to us. We'll talk you through the reality of it. This is not the IT world where coding will work perfectly the day after launch. It doesn't work that way. It's opposite. It starts with a poor quality and matures over time, works very well. Where in coding, it works very well the first day, but day 300, you have more cost of fixing it than the time you bought it, right? Nobody's going to do data. You have to do data. If I do it, that's not your AI. That's my AI, because I just stole it from you. So next conversation we'll have, I think we'll have lots of topic to discuss, and I'm looking forward to. Really am excited about discussing military guys that are in uniform right now, how to transition out of military uniform into a civilian role that will have AI in it, and they will have to have enough data literacy to engage with those AIs. We will talk more about subject matter expertise like Bobby's, talking about the architecturing data, right? Architecturing those data. So that way, when you're speaking about AI, you can speak with the correct terminology